Welcome back to the Contacts Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by Coach Steve Zenk of Salinas High School, who is also a math teacher, head football coach there for, I believe, the last 9 years. We're going to re-record that because we just had a goal scored. I don't know if you can hear all that. Let me give this a quick breather here. Anyway, welcome back to the Contacts Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by Coach Steve Zenk, head football coach at Salinas High School. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, let's dive in here. If you don't mind taking as much time as you see fit to help us ground the audience in your background. Specifically, how'd you get into coaching? When did you get your first job? First head job? Just take us through that transition to where we are now.
I grew up around here in Monterey County, Marina and Seaside mostly, and then moved to Salinas in high school and went to Palma High School. And I have a twin brother, and we both went there, got into enough trouble in junior high that our parents wanted to separate us from our friends and diverted us from Seaside High to Palma. And had a great experience there playing football. Was lucky enough to get a scholarship to Santa Clara University actually to play football out of high school. That was the last year Santa Clara had football, so I got to do the recruiting process all over again as a redshirt freshman, and ended up at the University of Idaho up in Moscow, Idaho. Played 4 years there. Had zero intention of ever coaching, zero intention of ever teaching. Just wasn't anything that I was interested in doing, and ended up coming back home and didn't really know what I wanted to do, and ended up actually getting a job as an adjuster in an insurance company my first year out of college, mostly because I needed a job and that was what was available at the time. And about 6 months in, Jeff Carnazzo at Palma had contacted me and told me that they had a need for a JV offensive defensive line coach. Coach Costa was still the head varsity coach, and Jeff was the JV head coach at the time. And I remember telling him I wasn't really interested, but I liked Jeff, so I wanted to, I said I'd come talk to him about it. And Coach Doug Saucedo, who's their freshman coach over there now for football, was probably one of my all-time favorite coaches. Everybody has that coach that believes in them and that really pushes them, and he was definitely that guy for me. And he kind of asked me as a favor, why don't you just do it for me? And I remember going, wow, I don't know if I really want to coach. And it's kind of a big time commitment at the time. And I was 23, I think. And I was really looking forward to the next September. I was going to Oktoberfest in Germany and, had all kinds of other stuff I wanted to do, and did not intend to coach, but felt like that if nothing else, I at least owed my coaches that I'd had, Coach Tony Rossi and Coach Costa and Coach Saucedo specifically, I at least needed to give back at least once. And then I did. A month into it, there was a need for a math teacher at the school. I was coaching a JV offensive and defensive line and enjoying every second of it. And there was a need for a math teacher that came up. Coach Carnazzo and Coach Soper, who was the dean of discipline at the time, talked to me about applying, and I wasn't really enjoying my insurance job at the time, so I applied, and 25 years later, I'm still teaching and coaching, and can't imagine doing anything else at this point. And then I'd stayed at actually at Palma for 3 years as a teacher and a coach. My last year there, I coached varsity offensive defensive line and called the defense, and we won a CCS title, and I think we were open division back when it was still open division. D1, whatever it was back then, I can't remember. Beat Oak Grove in the finals, and then I was looking to get married. And, private schools don't pay as well, and looking at some different jobs, and ended up actually at Hollister High School for 4 years as a coach. 1 year I did not teach there; I was doing other things, and taught for 3 years there, and learned from Chris Cameron, who probably one of the best high school football coaches around, and definitely huge influence on me as a coach. Just a straight up good man, and one of those people that you can always count on, that's always going to say exactly what he has to say, and he's going to mean whatever he says. And I learned a lot of that from him, and a lot of what it takes to be a head coach. I started paying attention a little bit more we were trying to have a baby, and I wanted to be a little closer to home. We live in Salinas, and basically it was not really super interested in being a head coach. But at that point in time, there was really only one other school in town where I felt like I was comfortable working for the head coach, just, philosophies being the same, that kind of stuff. And they didn't really need a line coach. And so I started looking around as for being a head coach, which I absolutely never wanted to do, and kind of accidentally said, oh, maybe I'll try this out. And then applied, and I got the job at North Salinas. I was there for 9 years. Wonderful young people there playing for us. Some girls and mostly boys, and just a lot of wonderful kids and great families. And really enjoyed my time there. And we had a son, and we have one son, my wife and I. She's also a teacher, but we had our first and only son. And I was missing quite a bit of his stuff. We live on the south side of Salinas, and driving back and forth across town, I was missing quite a bit of his things. And frankly, being a head coach, as most head coaches know, is you don't get any time off. You're going to spend, every minute you have working on something, doing something, contacting people, being contacted. And it just kind of felt like it was time for me to step down from that. I did. I was actually not sure I wanted to coach at all anymore. I knew I wanted to coach, but I wasn't sure I was going to right away. And then Steve Goodbuddy at Salinas talked to me about, hey, it's the same district, you don't lose tenure. Like, we'll try to get you on over here teaching. And I really would love to have a varsity line coach like you. And, we talked a bit, and Steve is just an excellent human being and a great administrator as a head coach, which was not a strong point for me. That wasn't the point of the choice. I was like, oh, I'll be a mile from home. I'll get to coach the line, which is what I love to do. And I can still teach math, and, I'll still have tenure and not give up service years and all those fun things that we have to do as teachers. And then I came to Salinas. I was 2014 that fall. I was assistant coach for 3 years under Coach Goodbody. I was not sure I wanted to be a head coach again. Well, I was sure I didn't want to be a head coach again. And then Coach Goodbody he decided it was time for him to retire, and he did. And he let everybody know. And he did tell me, he goes, I'm not encouraging anybody to apply or not apply, but I really think you should give it a shot. And between him and Coach
But I'm not encouraging you to do that. Just, maybe.
No, not at all. Right. And then I don't want to put words in Coach's mouth. Like, he didn't want to do that, but he wanted to be super impartial about it and support whoever got the job, because that's just the kind of person he is. And then Coach Williams, who was his assistant head coach and who's my assistant head coach, between him and my wife, who was teaching PE at Salinas as well, talked me into it, like applying. And I was like, and I'm not going to say I don't want to do it. I'm just going to say that I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to spend every single minute of my life doing it again. And I didn't want to miss out on my son. And I didn't want to trade in being a dad and a husband to be a coach. I wanted to be able to do it all. And, I always hear you can't have it all. Well, yeah, you can. You just have to manage your time better and do a better job delegating, which I had to learn how to do. And Coach Goodbody was excellent at that. And I would say that probably the best thing that happened to me as a head coach was not being a head coach for 3 years. After having 9 years of experience doing it, and, knowing what it entails, and just, the process and the job and everything else, being able to watch someone else do it after that. And then, Coach Goodbody is an excellent teacher, and he loved to answer questions, and I would just ask questions all the time. Like, hey, how come we're doing this way? And what do you think about this? And, what was your thought on this? And then about my second year, about the middle of the year, he would start to come over to me during games and goes, hey, if you're ever a head coach again, don't ever do this. Or if you're ever a head coach again, for instance, don't run sweeping your own end zone. And just, different things that would happen in games. And he was always great about that. And even to this day, he still calls every Friday or texts every Friday and says good luck. And after the game, he listens to it when it's on the radio and follows along on Twitter if it's not. And I get a text after every game, congratulations, or hey, put that behind you. And he's always great about that and just a great supporter. And then this is my 6th season, second time around being a head coach. And you know, been really blessed to have a great staff as far as my assistant coaches and just great support. Most of the people in the Salinas community know this. I'm not sure if everyone else does, but my wife and I actually do this together. That was kind of part of our deal, is that when she was talking to me about it and wanting me to do it, because she likes me doing it as a teacher because she thinks I'm great for kids. I don't know if I'm not going to say anything about myself, but I just thought that, you know, I just didn't want to trade in being a husband, and I didn't want to trade in being a dad. And I felt like I had to the first time as the head coach, and I didn't want to do that again. And so we worked it out where we're doing it together. So I'm not taking away from family by coaching. It's family time. We're doing it together. My wife is there for everything. She helps with all the organization. She helps with the finance stuff, the stuff I'm terrible at. And she's really good about being supportive and being there for kids. And this year is our son's a freshman and he's playing football. So it's kind of more of a family affair this year than it has been. And then, you know, as you grow, you do different things as a coach. First time around, you know, I didn't know anything. I was 29. And
let me pause you there because
okay.
I want to dig into a lot of the things you said, and I don't want to lose my train of thought. So
okay.
Selfishly, I'm going to interrupt you. And I'm going to come back. Remind me if I don't, to that we do it together and what that looks like for other aspiring coaches, because that's always a challenge when you get into it. But what I want to do here, and those of you that are listening, please forgive the noise. We got a water polo game going on outside my office, and it's quite exciting against our rivals. So I'm curious about, because, right, you mentioned at the beginning, look, I didn't want to coach. It's not something I wanted to do, but got your arm twisted. Why don't you just come and try this? And, you know, you've done the same to other people. I've done that to pretty much every coach I've ever hired. It's, you know, let me just get your foot in the door and you'll see how much you like this. So it's funny that that's where the story started. But you got to coach under Jeff. You got to coach under Coach Costa. You got to play for Coach Costa. You got to play for Coach coach for Coach Cameron at Hollister. Then it's time, right? Now I'm a head coach, even though I really wasn't looking to it. What did you learn after all of those great mentors teaching you, thinking you were prepared, and then you got in a room by yourself? Give me a few things that just hit you right in the face, like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this. Or I'm ready for it, but I didn't expect this.
I didn't know that you had to order spirit packs. As a first-time head coach, I thought they just showed up. Like, just those kinds of things you don't even know anything about, because, you know, Jeff and Coach Costa and Coach Cameron were such great organizers. And I always think, like, the best head coaches, you don't think they're doing anything. Like, you know, like, because you don't see them doing it. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know, like, uniforms. I thought the school paid for those. Like, I thought, oh, we get they just give us 200 pairs of shorts and shirts every year for football. That must come from PE. I had no idea where any of that came from. I just, you know, I was just a line coach. I was an assistant. I didn't have any idea where any of that stuff came from. And excuse me, like, my last assistant coaching job, we had 7 coaches on varsity and 6 were teachers. So I didn't have an understanding for off-campus coaches. And I'd never been a coach when I wasn't teaching. So I didn't understand the time commitment. Like, I didn't understand the difference of being on a different schedule and changing your schedule. So I didn't understand that when I'm hiring coaches, like, I should ask them, hey, like, we get done at 3:00. We start practice at 3:30. Can you be here at 3:30? Just those kinds of things, like logistics stuff. No idea about. No idea about how to tell adults what to do. Like, frankly, like, teachers, like, we're kings and queens in our classroom, right? We run our classroom, we have kids in there, but I never told another adult what to do in my life. Like, at that point, I think I was 29, and I never had to be a boss. I'd never done that before. You know, it's different in a classroom, I think, than talking to adults. You can't treat adults like they're kids. They don't appreciate it very much. And I kind of had to learn that. And I had to learn that, you know, yelling at your assistant coaches isn't a great idea when they're older than you and when you're 29. It just doesn't look good, and they don't really respond to that. You have to be able to communicate a little bit better than that. Excuse me. And then, you know, Chris Cameron's all gas, no brakes 100% of the time. He still is. Jeff's the same kind of person, and that's not me. I'm a little bit more laid back, But the two most successful programs that I had seen, that's the kind of head coaches they were. So I thought that's what I had to do to be successful, was I had to be just on and white hot all the time. But that's not who I am. And that was, I think, what I learned the second time around. And watching different people do it is, just like in the classroom, if you're not you, kids will know you're not being authentic. And if you're trying to put a front on or a face on, kids always know. They're better at it than we are with knowing that. And if you don't come off as authentic, then kids are never going to buy it. That's kind of, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I want to get into what you just mentioned. That's what I learned for the second time around, right? So you go back and you're working for coach at Salinas as an assistant again, and you're getting an opportunity to step back, see it through the lens of a former head coach. What did you pick up like immediately watching him going like, damn, had I had this then, we would have been able to do X, Y, and Z, or even forget about that. Like I'd have been able to serve the kids in this way better than I was able to. That now after that second mentorship, you're now being able to implement.
Just doing too much. Like I noticed with Steve, like I felt like he did a better job. Coach Goodbye did a better job delegating. And then when he delegated, he didn't micromanage. Like he trusted us to do our jobs. And I felt like my first time as a head coach, I didn't delegate very much. And the stuff I did delegate, I micromanaged. And like I was in charge of fundraising and special teams and offense. And I have coached two sides of the ball. And then along with, being a head coach, and looking back, I don't think I was a good head coach because I was never actually a head coach because I was doing everything else all the time. And Coach Goodbody was on the other side of things where he coaches everybody, but he didn't have a coaching responsibility. He was, a true head coach. That was his job. He was the head coach. And I did that. I've been doing that the last 6 years. I had planned to actually like all over again, like, hey, I'm going to coach the O-line and that's it. So I'm not going to coach both lines. I'm not going to call any plays. And then we went out to summer the first year there that I was hired. And we had 185 kids the first day. And I looked to my other offensive line coach. I'm like, there's no way I can do this. You're going to have to take over. And he's like, well, I'm like, there's 200 people out here, kids and coaches. Like, I'm going to have to do my job and manage all this and organize this. And I'm going to have to answer a million questions. And I can't do any of that if I'm stuck in the corner with the O-line. So I did learn that, like, and I learned it's good because the kids get to hear that too. Like, my absolute favorite thing to do as coach offensive line is my favorite part of coaching is my passion. But I don't do that because the team comes first and it's more important for the team if I'm not doing that. And so then I hired a second offensive line coach, and it was my brother. So it was an easy hire, but got a second guy out there to help. And then it's kind of been going with that same model since, where I don't coach a position. I don't call plays. I'm truly the head coach, and I manage, my coaches, and I manage the kids. And the nice part is I get to spend most of my time making sure kids are doing okay, making sure my coaches are doing okay, making sure that, I'm communicating all the time with everybody about what they're supposed to be doing or what they are doing great. And it just, it helps me relax a little tiny bit, right? And I think it makes me definitely more effective as a head coach, especially come game time when you're trying to manage a game and you're trying to manage all the nuances of the game. And I'm not coaching a position at the same time.
Can you do me a favor as a non-football coach, right? I think like everyone in America, we think we know something, but really I'm not. Can you lay out what that would look like for a young guy that's in your spot? He's trying to do everything and he can't let go, and he's trying to micromanage, but he's in the head coaching role. Can you, like, to the best of your ability, lay out how you structure your team, your staff, your practices, etc.? Just like, hey, this is what it used to look like when I was a position coach and a head coach. Now here's what I do, and here's what these people do, and here's what these people do. And more importantly, coach, how did you get to the point where you let go?
I had to. I wasn't 29 anymore, and I had to let go. Different energy level. Second time around, I was 41. Totally different energy level at 41 than 29. I still like to think I'm high energy and I'm all over the place, but I I can't get by on 4 hours of sleep a day like I used to be able to. If I don't get 7 hours of sleep, then I'm crazy, right? And I just figured out that, hey, I can't be up till midnight and get up at 4 a.m. to watch film and to prepare practice plans and, prepare my, individual times. I can't do all that. And what would happen is that someone said this very good to me. It was actually this Coach Goodbody was, you can't make more time. Like that's, oh, I got to make time to do this. You're not making time. You're just taking it from something else. And I would say, like, first time as a head coach, like we'd break up, we start practice, we'd have stretch, we go to special teams, and I was running the special teams. I was the special teams coordinator. So I'm helping coach special teams. I'm doing all that, getting that. And then say we go to the offensive portion of our practice, I'm coaching the O-line. And that's great. I like coaching the O-line. I like to think I'm pretty good at it. But now I have no idea what's going on with the rest of practice because I'm in the corner with the offensive lineman. Like, I don't know what's going on with the receivers. I don't know what's going on with the quarterback. I don't know what's going on, with the running backs. And and then we get to team, and now I'm trying to put that all together in team, like team offense. We have our individual instruction time, and then we get together, say 11 on 11 where we're practicing our full offense. And we get together then, and I wouldn't coach my offensive lineman because I was busy trying to get the team to pull together in the 20 minutes I had there because I'd spent the previous hour doing other things. And then we'd switch to the defensive side. This is my first time around. And I'd coach D-line, and I'd be doing my position coaching for 20 minutes. And again, I didn't know what the linebackers were doing. I didn't know what the defensive backs were doing. I didn't know that, hey, like our best corner got hurt, or that our inside backers, one of them is, being a crybaby about something, whatever it happened to be. I didn't know any of that because I was off doing something else. So I didn't ever have a chance to, fix the issues or to, rise to the challenges, I guess is a better way to say it, until you're all together in team, and then you just implode. Because there's, now you have 50 kids all together and you're trying to get 11 of them on the same page. Meanwhile, 2 of them, something's happened, whatever it is, and you can't do it. And it would feel like constantly, like I was always in crisis mode, like always veering from one crisis to the next. And then it was fundraising time, and I was in charge of that. And now I'm spending 2/3 of my time on fundraising in the off time when I'm supposed to be playing practice. I'm supposed to be doing this. And it just felt like I was never getting my job done. And it felt like I was spending all of my time doing it to not get it done. And the last couple of years at North Salinas, Mark Ironside was my offensive coordinator. Ben Siraldi, who's the head coach of North High now, was my defensive coordinator. And I was able to delegate, and Coach Ironside, what a good man, what a great big heart he has. Just a great guy to have on staff and a great mentor. It took me aside, and I remember going, just trust me, Steve. You don't have to watch me. You can trust me. And I was still in that habit of micromanaging everybody, even though I wasn't calling any plays. And I learned how to kind of let go a little bit. And I was still coaching the O-line and D-line, but I had another coach. We did it together. So when we went to team, he would take over on the O-line, and I would, run the offense with the, help run the offense and defense.
And how much would you say that shift that you've described being at Salinas has directly impacted the athlete's ability to grow?
Oh, it's huge.
Allowing other people to do the coaching.
It's huge. And because I'm not in a corner, because I'm not doing a specific job, which if I have a job, I'm going to do the best I can at it. Because I'm not coaching the O-line. Like when we're on offense, I talk to every kid and every coach, and I get to give my 2 cents in everything, and I get to involve myself in everything. And I get to help coach kids, and I get to help, when I see something hey, I see something with our slot receiver who's having an issue. Well, I can go talk to him about it. It's not coming to team, and now I'm blowing up because of, stress and pressure and all those things. And I'm blowing up when it could have been a 10-second conversation with him. Hey, you look like your hands hurt. Are you okay? Those kinds of things that you don't get to do when you're, overburdened and overstressed and overworked, where I can do those things now. And I can, I can see that, hey, one of our receivers is like looking pretty down, or, our quarterback is looking like his shoulder hurts. Like all those things that I wouldn't notice until we got to the end of practice because I was doing something else. And now we're in the first 15 minutes of practice. I can tell you which kids need help, which kids need to talk to, which kids need a pat on the back, which kids need, a shove, whatever it is that they need. Like I'm much more capable of doing that now just because I'm free to. And then all the things that, pull you as a head coach or an administrator, pull you in a million ways. I don't feel like I'm getting pulled away from my job. Like that is my job. I'm not getting pulled away from coaching the offensive line or the defensive line so I could deal with my head coach administrative stuff. I'm doing all those things concurrently because I'm not the O-line coach. Doesn't mean I don't coach the O-line. Doesn't mean I don't coach quarterbacks. Doesn't mean I don't coach everybody. Everybody gets coached by me. But my thing is the first time around, there'd be 15 kids on the team that I never coached the whole season just because the circumstances and everything else, they would never get, any one-on-one time with me, where now on varsity, every single kid gets one-on-one time with me every day. Like I have, it might be 10 seconds, it might be 2 seconds, but I say something, coach something, encourage, discourage, whatever it is, something with every single kid every day on varsity. And I try to, it's harder this year because of our practice situation with one of our fields being repaired, but I try to make a weekly contact with every single freshman and JV kid. And sometimes that doesn't seem like a lot, but we have 191 kids out, so it's a lot.
Yeah, for people listening that aren't in the area, their numbers are very large. And I think it's really not interesting is not the right word, because it's what you hope for, right? As a football program, can I remove myself not from a place of like I'm better than, but what I joke about all the time is like, you think being a head coach you're going to get to have fun with the X's and O's and all this other stuff, and it's like 15% of your job is coaching the actual sport. The other 85% is what you said: admin, managing egos, role definition, managing adults. So it's great that you've been able to figure that out, and the success you've described that's come as a result of that. Which leads me to wonder that, that's something that you do at a level that I would say is pretty abnormal for most high school programs. But what would you, if I asked you and you had to put this into a book and it's like, hey, what's the best thing you do as a program that has the largest ripple effect on your culture? And I know that's a buzzword, but it's really about, if Salinas High closed tomorrow and you still weren't done coaching and you had an opportunity to go somewhere else, we are doing this 100% of the time, no matter what school I coach at, because it's that much of a force multiplier in what we do.
There's 3 or 4. Number one, it has to be fun. Now, that doesn't mean it's always going to be fun, because practice is hard and it's football and it's hard. But there has to be an element of fun. It is a game and they're kids. And if we're not having fun, why are we out there? And that's something we encourage with our coaching staff. We encourage with our players, is that it's got to be fun. And, sometimes fun is last Monday is hot and we got popsicles for everybody after practice. Sometimes fun is like we do in the playoffs. We, for conditioning, we play ultimate Frisbee. Well, it's ultimate ball, but everybody knows what ultimate Frisbee is. Ultimate ball is ultimate Frisbee with the ball. But we play that, to make it fun. We do different things to make it fun and competitive. And then something that even my first time around, and every kid I've coached will probably be able to say this, is that it's important to me for kids to know that I love them. And it's important for me to know that it's okay for them to love me. And if that happens, then the trust happens and everything else is easy. And we're big on that as a coaching staff, is that we want to build relationships with our kids and we want to build positive relationships. And I want at least one coach on staff for every single kid that they can look in the mirror on. And I want, hey, that coach is just like me. And it does, when I was younger, I felt like I had to have a relationship with every single kid. And now, as long as they have a relationship with one of our coaches, I'm okay. I feel like we're doing our job. And it's a mentorship relationship. And it's one of those things that, if you'd asked me when I was 25, if I thought it was important that that kids and coaches loved each other, I would have said no. And at 47, I'm going to say I would never want to do it again if I didn't know that was part of what we were doing. I absolutely love kids more than football, and absolutely want the best for them way more than I want to win games. And I would never want to go back on that. And there's always a pragmatic side of that. That is, if you do that, you're going to get more out of kids, sure, but that's not why we're doing it. And then the other thing is that when I first started out, I was product of how I played and how I was raised and the football systems I went through, and the 3-hour practice was normal. And if we practice more than 2 hours and 5 minutes, then that's too long. They have other things to do. I have other things to do. We're teachers. I know that after 2 hours, not paying attention anyway. And I don't feel like anything after 2 hours is really productive. But we don't practice more than 2 hours ever. And my offensive coordinator says it the best. He says, we have the best 2-hour practice you've ever seen. Everything's fast, everything goes. And I would never want to go back on that either. We want to go fast. We want to have great tempo. And we want to play like that. And we want games to be easy compared to practice.
Yeah, all three of those are great. Specifically the focus on fun, which I laughed when you said it. It's the same thing I feel at 47, right? Same as you. It's like, hey, you know what? My focus as a 47-year-old, we're at 90-minute practices, coach, so come get down on my level. But one of my buddies on the pod one time said, yo, it's not like that extra half hour is going to equate to whatever. It's like they're either going to get it or they're not. So I love the fact that the less is more approach, as we're getting more and more to that in these days, rather than when we were younger. And I think that's important for the young coaches, especially, to understand. I'm going to pivot here just a second, because I think our community is so small, and you've basically been here other than your time away at Idaho, and the people that you've been able to be around and mentor you. Kind of let you throw a bone out there and give some gratitude to some of the things you've been able to learn, if you don't mind. And it doesn't have to be everyone, because you're going to miss. But are there things that you got from the people you listed that you're still doing today that you can point directly to, you know what? Carnazzo gave me this, Costa gave me this, Goodbody did this, Cameron did it. Just like that, now as you reflect, like, wow, I've been doing this for X long and I got exposed to it here. And it's been super important, and they're the reason why. If you, maybe throw a few things out there that you can point to that would, obviously make them feel good, but also let you kind of reflect on the journey.
Doug Saucedo, my first football coach, made it fun. And you wanted to be at practice. And you wanted to be at practice because he was fun. And that's what made practice fun. And it's been, say I was 15, so it's been 32 years. And he's the kind of man, if I called him today and asked for a favor, he'd still say yes, and he'd still be there for me. And he's like that with every kid that's played for him. He's just that kind of human being. Tony Rossi was our offensive defensive line coach at Palma when I was in varsity. And I probably spent more time at his house on the weekends when I was in high school than I did at my own house. Always felt welcome there. Always felt like we're part of the family. And just one of those guys that, again, like, just great relationships. I always felt like I could talk to him about anything, and that he would give me an honest answer. It didn't mean it was the answer I wanted, but I could always get an honest answer. And he didn't have any problem calling me on my crap. And then Coach Costa, I thought, was great at he was great at leading by example more than anything. Like, and again, everybody has different pieces. He was great about, Coach Costa was never late. He was never angry. He was very rarely raised his voice to anybody. I don't have that capability, but he was really good at that. And he was really good at letting everybody know that the team was most important. And, I saw him a couple months before he passed away, and he was mowing his lawn, and I was driving by on my car, and I stopped to say hi. And he said, "Steven, just want to let you know we're all proud of you, and I remember telling him, "Hey, coach, I think that's the first time you ever say anything nice to me." And but he gave me the wave, the old coach wave, and give me that, and we laughed about it, and it was just great to see. Coach Carnazzo, I don't know anybody that prepares like him. I remember feeling like we watched too much film when I coached with him, and I'm saying that now, but at the time, remembering like, how much film do we need to watch? Like, I watched every game a couple of times. Like, how much do we need to watch? And he was just great about that preparation and being over prepared and preparing for every eventuality and having a plan. I thought that was something he was really good at, and he was great about the same thing. Like, it's kind of the common theme with most of the coaches I've worked with. He had great relationships with his players. Excuse me. And then I went to Hollister, and Chris Cameron, I don't know anybody that's more honest and more upfront. And I think the best quote I ever heard from him was, every time something happens that's negative or that's a challenge, I relish those occasions. It's an opportunity for me to be who I say I am. And every time I feel like I don't want to do something as a head coach, and every time I feel like, like I have to have an uncomfortable talk with a kid or a parent or anything like that, I hear him in the back of my head going, "This is a time, Stephen. This is a time for you to be who you say you are. This is a time for you to stand up and be who you say you are and be that person." And, again, just one of those things. And then Coach Goodbody, this later, in life, I guess, mentor after I'd had some experience. I don't know anybody that was more selfless and better at, better at being selfless about being a head coach, and better about making it about the kids in the program more than anything, and that was something that, I like myself, not a ton, but I do like myself. And it was just a real unique perspective from coaches that he didn't feel like the individual was important. The team and the program, the continuity of Salinas Cowboy football is what was important, and that we're caretakers for those that came before and those that are going to come after us. And that's something that has been really nice. That we've had a lot of success the last 5-6 years, and it's really helped me stay grounded about that. I remember being younger and thinking that, I'm immune to ego, like everyone, everyone's, "Oh no, it's got to get people are nice to you all the time and all that." And I remember thinking I was immune to it. And then you win a CCS title, and 6 months, everybody being nice to you, and nobody's immune to that. But like I said, it was a great learning experience for me. A little humbling to, have to get back on top after that year, and just kind of, like I said, just keeping the focus on important things. Let's get better every day. Let's make sure we take care of kids. Let's make sure that we work hard, and keep the focus on teaching and coaching, and not so much on who we're playing, what we're playing for, or winning and losing, because those things take care of themselves if you do the right things.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think all of those lessons have obviously helped shape who you are and what you're doing right now. And it also leads me to wonder that outside of football, what have you learned? What have you stolen? What have you observed watching other sports and thinking about how does that now apply to football? I'm on this soapbox the last 10 years or so about bringing back the 3-sport athlete, and football is that one unique sport where I really truly feel they embrace that and don't, want those guys everywhere else, where there's a little lip service given from other sports. But in that role, how often have you been able to be out there watching the other sports on your campus or at Notre Dame or at Hollister or Palma when you were there and be like, that right there, we're doing that tomorrow, even though it's not something that has anything to do with football?
My wife and I make sure we go to one of everything. It was a lot easier when we didn't have a kid. But when I was single, I went to pretty much every sporting event. And then getting married, you go to a little bit less because, you're married and you have commitments. And then having a kid, now you have their commitments, which is, I understand why parents look like they're old, because you're always taking them somewhere, doing something with them. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. But the more 3-sport athletes, the better. I myself played 3 sports. I tell kids all the time, you have 12 opportunities to play high school sports, and you should use all 12 of them. And don't use, I want to work out for football as an excuse not to do something. I used to think that like everybody can do it, you know, like at 30, 35, like, oh, you can come home and work at 6 in the morning. You can do this, you can do this, and then you can still play 3 sports. And a little bit older, a little wiser, I understand that some people can, yes. Like I was one of those people that, yes, I could do that. Like I could do 3 sports. I could lift every single, you know, my 3 to 5 days a week, depending on what the program was. And I could have my 5 AP classes, and I can do all those things and do school newspaper and do ASB and do everything else because my parents didn't let us out of the house if it wasn't for school. So we signed up for everything. Like honestly, like our curfew was dark if it wasn't for something for school. And so learning all that and then just taking that and going, you know what? Like, I don't want to discourage kids from playing other sports. And the importance of the weight room of football is, I think, definitely stated by every football coach in America. And this last February, when we were getting ready to start, I told 140 kids that if they couldn't do both, I prefer they play another sport. And it wasn't because I don't want them in the weight room. It was, I think it's better for you to develop athleticism and play another sport. And I think it's more important that you have a great experience in high school than I get what I want out of you in the weight room. And that was kind of a big turning point. And we've been doing it the last 5 or 6 years, but this was the first time where I actually verbalized it and told every kid individually who was telling me, I really want to play lacrosse, but I'm not sure because I don't want to miss the weight room. And for me to say, I want you to go out and play lacrosse. And you can make the weight room when you make the weight room, but I want you to go play lacrosse. And I'm thinking about wrestling, but I'm not sure because I want to be in the weight room. I want you to go wrestle. I don't want you to skip, you know, and you're in track, you're getting a great workout. And then, you know, the overtraining stuff that we talk about, like I communicate with the other coaches, like, hey, like, you know, like our baseball coach, do you want your pitchers working out? Like, do you have a workout for them? And my workout doesn't have to be the best workout. Like I know our track coaches, they work out twice a week, 3 times until meets start. And then at the end of the year, they start to tail off for health reasons. And I'm 100% bought in. I want our track team to be successful. And I don't want to force a kid to do something that I think is going to help our football team in August, you know, in April. Like to me, that's being a selfish adult and making my wants and needs more important than what's best for the kid. And so I don't, even though that was really hard for me, like to let go of. And it was really hard to get that kind of frame of mind. But they're all running track 5 days a week, probably doing a lot more than lifting 4 days a week for an hour. I think they're probably getting a lot more out of it.
Absolutely, especially the burners you have on your team. What, if you could, if I circle back to the other half of that question, can you identify over the years a handful of things that you've directly stolen from another sport that aren't football related, but that you immediately instilled into the way in which you approach things?
Parent meetings. I was never a fan of them as a football coach. And then going to, my wife coached basketball for years, and you know, I've filmed more freshman girls basketball games than anybody probably in America. And I was the film crew, and I got to see how she met with parents and how she dealt with parents, and much more hands-on. Like I notice a lot of, especially smaller sports, if you have 15 kids on a team, it's a lot easier to get to know all your parents individually and personally. And I try to do that in football. And that's definitely, I stole that from smaller sports. It's harder with 190 people, but it's not impossible. It's just harder. And I try to make sure that I get to know everybody that I can. And, you know, it's never going to be 100%, but I try to do that as much as I can. And then like specific stuff, like sports specific stuff, I can't really think of anything. Some of the games that we play, like kids will say, hey, like, you know, in lacrosse, we play this game called Sharks and Minnows. Like this is something we do for conditioning, and I'll try that. Our kids love some of the games they play in PE, so I definitely steal from PE. Like we do that for summer conditioning. We do a lot of different things to make it more competitive. They love dodgeball. They love ultimate ball. We do like a big old tournament, the playoffs, where we're playing as our conditioning. We pick teams, and, you know, we do like a dodgeball tournament for 3 weeks if we make it that far, and just make it fun. I
think that is so important to state for people that are listening, especially a program that has the success that you've had, that one of your non-negotiables is fun, and 2, When we get to the playoffs, we're having dodgeball tournaments as part of our practice. And I said this last year, one of the best practices we had last year in the midst of not being able to go in the gym, having COVID, we went down to the beach and played beach volleyball and spike ball. And it was like we went on a tear the next 3 weeks because of how we competed, one, and number two, how much fun we had, and number three, how much it brought together a shared experience that then followed us onto the court.
Yeah. Yes. The more you do together, the closer you are. We eat together as a program. The varsity team on Monday nights when we watch film, and we are within our 3 hours because we only practice for 2. But we do our 2 hours of practice, and we do 35 minutes of film Mondays after practice. And our parents are absolutely wonderful. They put a full meal together for us. My thing is, I don't want kids going home and having homework and dinner and everything else to do. When they go home, all they have left is whatever homework they have. And we're never there. We start at 3:30 because of the later start time now. And we're never done past 6 o'clock, including film. Tuesdays we lift, same thing though. We're not going to lift past 30 minutes because I have 2.5 hours playing. That's something, I think I learned as I got older. And some of that also, like from basketball, my younger brother is a basketball coach, and basketball practice is a lot shorter than football practice. And I remember me and him have had a lot of conversations about it. And I played basketball myself, and just how much more you can get out of a fast up-tempo practice. I definitely stole that from basketball. And football's changed in the last 15 years. It's not as much rock'em sock'em, and the game had to change or it was going to be gone because we can't have kids getting hurt and getting concussions. So we had to change how we were playing and how we were coaching. And a lot of that, I think, came from basketball and from what I would consider more skilled sports. Football used to be the thug sport, right? And now I think football is on a par with the other skilled sports like basketball, that really you want skilled athletes at every position.
Can we talk about that for a second? So
yeah.
I've got this written down on my sheet of questions. I kind of have a little recipe, and I've got one written down. It's been here for months. What does an effective practice look like? As someone that twice now on this call has said, look, we've streamlined our practice. We're going quick. We're doing X, Y, and Z. What does that look like if you were to map it out, just an average? Because obviously offense, defense, day, whatever. But, hey, we got this, then we got this, then we got this, then we got this. It's all on the whistle. Talk through that for somebody that's really trying to enhance their approach to practice.
I don't like standing around talk time. Like standing around talk time, that's for after practice, before practice. So we have a 10-minute period that's pre-practice, where if you want to talk about something, you want to install something, you want to walk through something, you want to have kids stand around listening to you talk, we have 10 minutes to do that every day, and that's it. The stand around time, we have a limited amount of time. We need to get as many reps as possible, and we're going to. And then, okay, not standing around. 10 minutes of pre-practice, and it's called pre-practice before we start, where you can do your install and you're talking. Call it walk and talk time. And we do our static stretching at that time, and it's all by position groups, so spread out all over the field. And then we stretch as a team, and we do a dynamic warm-up, which takes 7 minutes. And they've done all their static stretching. We've done all that. We do a dynamic stretch for 7 minutes, and then we do a special teams period for 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the day. And then we go right into individual instruction, whatever it is. So, all the, say, quarterbacks are in a group, all the D linemen are in a group, and they're with their coach getting their individual instruction. And that's generally 20 minutes. And then, if it's a defensive day, we have 10 minutes of tackling. If it's an offensive day, we have 10 minutes of just catching passes and running routes, not necessarily full speed, just getting used to running routes and throwing the ball on time to a spot. And then we have some kind of team pass situation, some kind of inside run situation. Those are usually 10 to 15 minutes each. And then some kind of team offense situation where it's 11 on 11 simulating a game. And those are never more than 20 minutes. And usually right about then, we're about 2 hours. And at some point in time, because we do go fast and we get to that point where we're not using all the time we have planned. If we have 3 minutes left and say like an inside run session, but we've accomplished what we need, that's when we run. We try to get most of our running done as part of practice. And like my thing is, I tell the kids at the very beginning of the year, we're going to run 5 minutes hard twice a week. And if that takes 5 minutes or 25 minutes, that's up to you. But we're going to get 5 minutes of really hard running in, and that's it.
I love that. I love it.
Well, and they buy in, like they get it. Like, and I'm, if as long as you're honest with kids and you follow through, they love it. Like we run for 5 minutes, and it might be 2 minutes here and 3 minutes there, but we're going to get it in. And I told them, we're not running for shape. You get in shape during practice if we do it right. We're running to get the soreness out and expand your lungs, get your stride longer, and all those things that aren't going to happen playing football. And then we usually have at the very, very end, like 2 to 3 minutes of, we clean up the field. We're big on leaving it better than we found it. And then I never talk to the kids for more than 60 seconds after practice, and we never take a knee. That's just a philosophy thing with me. Mm-hmm. Like I hate being on a knee on the field. Like I hated it personally. It hurt my knees. I'm 6'5". It didn't feel good. And I didn't like it. And I'm 6'5", and I don't even be on a knee so I could see them all. I could see them all. And we talk 30 to 60 seconds, even after a game, 30 to 60 seconds. And they're kids. They're not listening to you at that point in time. They're thinking about their next meal, and they're thinking about changing clothes. And like I big on it. Hey, I want 30 to 60 seconds of your attention, your full attention. I'm going to give you probably 2 pieces of information, say something nice and say something we need to get better on. Then we're going to get a break and you're going to get out here. And then, like I said, we might transition to film or weight room, but I'm always big on valuing their time and valuing our coach's time. And that was something I thought Coach Goodbody was excellent at, was not overworking everybody. He always found that right mix of spending enough time, but not too much time. That was something I definitely paid a lot of attention to. We barely changed the practice schedule from what he did. And we actually, it's crazy, is doing that, we get more done. With a 2-hour practice, we get more done than we used to get done in a 3-hour practice. We used to have like 25 minutes for team offense, and we get maybe 20 plays in, back in the old days, huddling up and running a traditional offense. And now we do 20 minutes of team offense. At this point in the year, we're, game 4, we're getting 75 plays in 20 minutes. And it's 75 plays of full go, let's go, where, like I said, it used to be 20 plays in the same amount of time. Defensively, is a little slower because, we have scout cards and it takes a little bit longer to set up the scout team. But in a 20-minute scout team, we're still getting 55, 60 plays in, and I run the scout teams because that's my time to coach. So I enjoy that, actually.
What would be a soundbite in 30 seconds or less that has allowed you to get to that point? Because I've watched a bunch of football practices here, other places, and I don't know that efficiency exists in my experience, where you're getting 75 plays in 20 minutes or 50 on the defensive side. Like, what's a soundbite? Like, hey, you want to get to this? 1, 2, 3.
At the beginning, there's a lot of yelling, and not like, but like, get in the huddle, let's go. Find your spot, see what you're doing, on the scout team. And then offensively, like, that's the one thing that's one of the benefits of me not coaching a position, is that I'm in charge of the tempo of practice. And for the first month, I'm always saying, hurry up. And I'm always saying, next play, let's go. And it gets to the point, like, the kids don't notice. I make sure I point it out every week or so, like how much better they are than a week before. And I make sure, like that's one of the things I'll talk about at the end of practice, is like, you realize 2 weeks ago you would have died 25 minutes into practice, and like they look at you like you're crazy. I'm like, no, seriously, like the level we were at 2 weeks ago, 25 minutes into the practice today, you would have all been dead, and I would have had to stop practice and got you water and probably give you a 10-minute break and all kinds of stuff. And today we went for 2 hours like that, and you're barely winded and you're not really sweating that much. Well, so just so we know where we're coming, and it's just the organization part. We're lucky. I mean, blessed, I think, is the better word, that we have 6 full-time offense coaches and 6 full-time defensive coaches, and we 2 platoon our coaching staff and most of our kids. Like, some of our exceptional players who are playing both ways, but we try to have almost nobody. This year we have 2 guys that play 1.5. You know, they play full-time on one side and half on the other. And that's it. Everybody else is a one-way person, and it allows us to get that speed and those reps. And, you know, it helps with the physical longevity of the season as far as not getting hurt, because you're reducing the number of plays that you're getting, you know, as far as offense and defense. And, you know, you're just reducing the likelihood of injury. And it also helps, I think, that you're getting 2 hours of coaching as a defensive back every day as a defensive back. You're getting 2 hours of coaching every single day as a quarterback. Right. You're not getting, you know, 45 minutes of quarterback, 45 minutes of safety. It's 2 hours every day.
Yep. Nope. Definitely a nice luxury to have when you have the ability to do that. And I'm going to wrap with this. And this doesn't even have to be about coaching, right? We've talked a little bit about how your approach has changed over the years already. I feel like we've captured that, but I always ask this towards the end. It's, what have you most recently changed your mind on? And it doesn't have to be coaching. It could be as a dad. It could be as a teacher. It could be as a spouse, whatever. But it's a growth mindset question, Coach, right? So like, I used to be here and now I'm over here, and here's why.
I used to be, I would categorize it as old school, and like, I'm going to be incredibly hard on you, and I'm going to call it discipline, and I'm going to be pretty harsh with you, and I'm going to call it good discipline. And I went and saw Joe Ehrman speak, I want to say 2012 in the spring when he was at CSUMB, when Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Belizio set that up out there. I took a guy that was coaching with me in North Salinas, who played for me in North Salinas, and ended up an All-American at Redlands. And we went together because I was going to go and I needed to bring a second person, and he volunteered. He got to go with me. And I remember sitting in the car afterwards and asking him, you know, just a specific thing that Mr. Ehrman had been talking about. Like, did you feel that way when you played for me? And I remember saying that, like, just specifically, like, did you feel that way playing for me? And I remember, like, he paused and he said, sometimes. Like, sometimes I felt like, you know, the transactional versus transformational coaching. And he said, like, sometimes I did feel like it was a transaction. He goes, but I knew you loved me, so, like, it was okay. And I'm like, I remember, like, just thinking to myself, like, I don't want anybody treating my son like that. Like, my son at that point in time was 2 years old, and I remember thinking, like, I don't want anybody treating my son like that, and I definitely don't want to treat anybody else's son like that. I just kind of started that whole change of the ends don't justify the means. Now, that doesn't mean that it's all, like, you know, sunshine and rainbows and all that kind of stuff. It's football and it's harsh, and sometimes we're going to be harsh, but it has to have some love and caring first. And I don't want to encourage kids. You know, we hear toxic masculinity, and I don't believe in toxic masculinity. I believe there's great masculinity. There's people that are faking being masculine. And I want to encourage kids to be good men, I don't want to encourage kids to use people as things. And that's really what it all came down to, the transactional versus transformational coaching. It's kids aren't things.
Yep.
And things have no value to me, and people do. And if everything I'm doing doesn't get that across to kids, then I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right. Well, I think that's a great way to end it, Coach. I appreciate you taking the time tonight. Looking forward to coming out and watching you guys go this year, and to see however far you run this thing up. So take care. Let me know if you ever need anything. And thanks for coming on.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me.